Welcome, friends.
To the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I am Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
Boot, it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear, that's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields.
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Well, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Here we are in rounding the bend to the legendary episode 182. We have arrived at 181. So we've almost
Boy,
reached...
I can't wait until next week. Everybody should just quit listening to this show.
Yeah.
And just wait till next week.
Yeah, we're about to reach the goal of 182 consecutive podcasts, mostly of other people's bullshit, but some of ours. Some of the bullshit is ours as well. And
we're spewing a lot of our own bullshit.
We have a familiarity with bullshit, and that makes us good at it, I guess.
Do what you know.
Yeah. So this week I'm going to talk about Manly P. Hall, and I'm going to leave it at that.
All right. And I'm going to talk about unmanly Donald Trump. But no, I'm going to talk about we're going to go into the commandments.
Yes.
And then I'm going to talk about one of the manliest of men, an actual mountain man, and Jim Bridger and his role in Mormon history, which is improbable and very interesting.
Yeah, super. In fact, yesterday I just remembered this. I drove into Bridger country.
Oh, yeah.
Northern Utah, Logan is they call that Bridgerland.
Do you want to tell the listeners why you did that?
I drove 2 hours north yesterday because I was able to arrange getting the motherfucking vaccine.
Yay!
Woo! Yeah.
Woo.
So one of your uncles will survive this probably.
Well, let's see. I mean, you did pay for the vaccine with Bitcoin in a Walmart parking lot, so...
Oh, I totally jumped the line. I pushed an old lady out of her wheelchair and got in it and just wheeled myself right up. So
I love it.
So I'm having major flu-like symptoms today, so hopefully we get through it. But I'm very happy. It was a very emotional moment, I have to tell you. So
that's good.
In fact, they give you the little vaccine card, like right when they give you the injection, the little proof of your vaccine. She's like, oh, just write your name on that. And my hand was shaking so much just because of the whole year of this kind of fucking anxiety and everything. I couldn't even write my name on it. So it was good. So I drove to Bridgerland yesterday, and I just want to say it's not about shawls or quicksand this time. I actually fucked up last week and said something very callous about adoption, and I should not have said that, and I'm sorry about that. So Doug was talking about the Sufis, and we were talking about the great cultural appropriator Madonna. And I thought I was the big gay was going to revoke my gay card for criticizing the Virgin Mother Madonna. But no, I said something dumb about adoption, and I didn't mean to. We all make our families however we can, and we're a big proponent of that. So Uncle Mark will try not to be such a dummy in the future. So
the lesson to take away from this, obviously, is say something very insensitive about a group of people and get the vaccine.
Yes.
Or, if you have to say something insensitive, make it about quicksand or shawls, is all I'm saying. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, with that, let us continue the shoe.
Uncle Dan.
Hey there.
What's in a name?
A rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
It's like when Homer Simpson changed his name to Max Power.
You're right.
Or
we should just see if we can do a whole show just in stupid aphorisms.
We could.
Yeah.
We could do it.
Well, I think Uncle Mark's got a character to talk about whose name may or may not have to do with their character, but it's certainly a name that I wish I had.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome name. So I do want to talk about it. He is a fairly fascinating and obscure man, and I want to talk about him as a gateway to a less fascinating and not at all obscure man, and how silly, even utterly false ideas can get blown up into a whole mess of garbage that can fuel dangerous modern mythologies if we aren't careful. Doesn't that sound fun?
Yeah, but it doesn't sound very likely. I mean, nothing I've ever witnessed would indicate that that's true.
And it's pretty off-brand for our show.
This is where the judge says, "I'll allow it, but you're on thin ice, mister." So, first to the fascinating and obscure guy, he by the name of Manly P. Hall. Yeah. Who, despite being manly, was thusly described by the LA Times in 1923. Quote, "He is tall with unusually broad shoulders, football shoulders, but he wears his curly dark brown hair bobbed like a girl's, and even his face and eyes convey an almost feminine impression." So make of that what...
It was a simpler time.
It was a simpler time.
God.
Maybe he picked manly to kind of help deal with what he saw as his feminine attributes. So Hall was born in Ontario, Canada in 1901. He was sickly and frequently out of school as a boy, which gave him time to pursue his own voracious reading habit. He never met his father, and the grandmother that raised him died when he was 16, necessitating his move to Los Angeles, California, to live with his long-absent mother in 1919, who, as it turns out, was an avid Rosicrucian.
We still haven't done them, have we?
I know. They keep coming up, and we've never actually gone right at them. So, and Rosicrucianism was a recently founded, for the time, esoteric Christian order steeped in ancient mysticism. Already very much interested in such things from his own readings, Hall jumped in with both manly feet. It seems he never attended even a single day of college. Yet by the age of 23... by the age of 18, he was giving lectures in downtown Los Angeles in something called the Church of the People. And by 1923, he was ordained as its main pastor. In addition to his oratory skills and 3-book-a-week reading habit, he was a prolific writer as well, publishing scores of pamphlets and books on ancient signs and symbols, esoteric philosophy, and one of his defining obsessions, Freemasonry.
You know, Uncle Mark, I was about to say, speaking to his 3-book-a-week habit, I was literally about to say, just imagine if you had nothing to do but sit around and read books. And then I thought hard about the last year and how much I failed at that.
I know. I think I read 2 books this past year. It was such a failure. So just a few years later, at the age of 27, this precocious young mystic wrote what would be his definitive tome, a slim 633-page book with the catchy title of An Encyclopedic Outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian Symbolical Philosophy, being an interpretation of the secret teachings concealed within the rituals, allegories, and mysteries of all ages.
I read that.
Yeah.
Clearly he was paid by the word.
Oh, no, I was thinking of Ethan Frome. Never mind.
Yeah, known more commonly as the secret teachings of all ages. And it is a pretty breathtaking work in its scope of subject matter, from astrology to a treatise on the tarot, alchemy, myths from across the world, the secret meaning of symbols, a substantial survey of religions generally, Hebrew mysticism, Egyptian geometry and architecture, the true meaning of Shakespeare, and naturally Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry, all illustrated by his lifelong artist and friend collaborator, J. Augustus Knapp, who you should look up. One article I read described him as the esoteric Norman Rockwell. Quick aside, the book was pre-sold to people, the total cost being $100, which in the America of 1928 was a lot of clams, with a down payment followed by installments, and based just on his popularity as a young intellectual master of the great mysteries of the past, it was kind of a huge underground success. He sold a ton of them, but this great work was largely ignored by the critical press.
Rude.
So basically, looking back at the secret societies, mystical cults, Eastern religions, and philosophies of the world, Hall seemed to believe, well, all of them. I should note most of what can be found online about Hall, other than his own prolific writings. He wrote 150 books and essays in addition to his giant book of secrets, is by modern author Mitch Horowitz, who is a great writer and historian, but he also seems to be quite a bit of a Manly P. Hall fanboy, so I've tried to take his views with a bit of a grain of salt. But according to what I can find, Hall believed that all of these ancient wisdoms, ideas, and symbols were of great importance, even in his own time, and had much to teach us. So he was sort of out of the school of Helena Blavatsky's Theosophical movement, which has come up more than once on this show, most especially in episode 52. Blavatsky's ideas are pretty loony. There's lots of stuff about Atlantis and, of course, Lemuria and where the races come from and how they fucked different animals to degrade, and not just a little bit racist, as the whole esoteric movement of the late 19th and early 20th century is loaded down with Western chauvinism and esoteric fascism. Yet the author Mitch Horowitz defends Manly P. Hall from any such prejudices. But
of course not.
Of course, he's a good guy. But the thing about Hall's writings that is most germane to today's segment is that he was a peculiar sort of American nationalist. A high-ranking and devoted Freemason himself, Hall believed America was the deliberate creation of Masons and other secret orders as the next step in human social and spiritual development, and that America had a secret destiny that God had ordained. As several of the founding fathers were actually Masons, like Washington and Franklin, and the real intellectual power behind the founding of the country were Enlightenment political philosophers like Jefferson and Paine, he had an argument. I think most people would argue it was as much an economic enterprise in the preservation of profits derived from human enslavement and the exploitation of stolen land for profits that they didn't want to share with the distant king. But sure, let's go with a dedication to spiritual freedom and human liberation. And in this devotion to his vision of America, the obviously brilliant Hall could be a little careless with his sourcing and facts. In 1944, Hall published a book called The Secret Destiny of America. That it was a short book, especially by Hall's own standards, will be of importance here. In this book, he turgidly describes an incredible moment that, quote, took place in Philadelphia on July 4th, 1776. Our august forefathers were locked in heated debate and woe over the grave consequences that would likely face them should they take quill in hand and sign the Declaration of Independence. So fraught with danger were these proceedings that the room and the building were locked and under heavy guard. Yet into this body of men, very well known to each other, appeared a stranger. He took to the podium and in stirring oratory beseeched the fretting, bewigged men not to worry so much about the disposition of the heads those wigs rested upon, to screw their courage to the sticking place, and he finished with, God has given America to be free, in Braveheart fashion. So the formerly floundering fathers...
Or Ted Cruz fashion.
The formerly floundering fathers founding flung themselves feathers first upon the Declaration, scrumming like Roman senators trying to get a stab at Caesar in order to sign the thing. And when all the ink was spilled and dried, they looked around the room, and the stranger was gone.
Oh, no.
Whoa, right?
And that stranger was Ichabod Crane.
Well, now, Mormon listeners will no doubt see this as evidence of this mysterious stranger as being one of the three Nephites, as discussed in episode 39. But most astute listeners will see this story as evidence of bullshit.
Nothing. Yes. Yeah. Evidence of nothing.
Yeah. And minutes of those meetings were fairly well kept. So where did the big brain Manly P. Hall get this amazing tale? With some digging, Mitch Horowitz found it had come from an obscure collection of patriotic folk tales published in 1847 called Washington and His Generals and or Legends of the Revolution by a weird friend of Edgar Allan Poe, a guy by the name of George Lippard. Not George Peppard, who played John Hannibal Smith, commander of TV's The A-Team. No, George Lippard, different guy. So anyway, Lippard acknowledged the story of the mysterious order was made up. He was created as a sort of composite character to embody the mythos and the passions of the age. Now, many listeners will be familiar with, with the outlines and directions of this story if they listen to my two-part interview with Jared Yates Sexton in episodes 136 and 137. But if not, hang in there. Okay, so what? Who cares if a guy who would have thought that the National Treasure movies were documentaries fell for just another made-up story? Well, it turns out Hall's very short book about the legends of America's founding somehow found its way into the hands of the slightly dim and very superstitious star of such films as Little Miss Thoroughbred, Girls on Probation, and Murder in the Air. Remember at the beginning I said the story of a remarkable but obscure guy would lead us to a less remarkable and not at all obscure guy? Well, meet Ronald Reagan.
That's right. I forgot about this.
The not great actor who is widely considered the greatest president of the modern age by far too many people.
He was not.
and somehow is also widely believed to have been a good Christian man. Have you guys watched the 4-part Reagan documentary on Showtime?
No.
Not yet.
Oh my God, it's incredibly good, if enraging. And oh my God, it shows how past is indeed prologue. Reagan, while no bright light, was not half as anvil stupid or lazy as Trump, but the shadows they cast were very similar, from ignoring an exploding plague to stratospheric and needless military spending to waging war on the poor and people of color, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the Christian right's insistence that these two men had Christ-like, specifically Christian attributes that makes my blood pressure shoot up until my eyes spin like slot machines. We all know Donald Trump is exactly as Christian as my garage door opener is. Not at fucking all. And the same was true of Reagan. Yes, Reagan was raised a nominal Christian, and yes, he had at least a basic feel for the language of pandering to Christian America. But outside of a few photo op visits to a church or two, that, to Reagan's very tiny credit, did not require stormtroopers to gas and beat the shit out of people so he could hold a borrowed book he'd never read.
Upside down.
You know what? It wasn't.
Well,
how dare you?
I want it to be, but it wasn't upside down. Snopes is like, no, it wasn't upside down.
Doesn't matter, really. But.
So Ronald and his lovely wife, Nancy, were not remotely Christian at all. And I think it's super important we don't let that very important fact get lost in the fucking myth-making of the conservative pantheon the Reagans are installed in. The Reagans were occultists. Yes, occultists, while they were carried into office on the shoulders of evangelical America during the height of the satanic panic that saw many of their fellow occultists hated, hunted, despised, and even prosecuted by Reagan-loving Christians in this country that makes no goddamn sense at all. Yet, unlike Trump, Ronald, if not Nancy, believed in some sort of higher power. He believed in some kind of patrician God, whether or not he ever went to his church or prayed to him in any way. And Reagan saw America and the providence that had installed him to damn near destroy the place as proof of God's divine hand blessing America, and blessing America with he himself, a veteran of several war movies he would later confuse for actual military service, for which he claimed credit but never actually did. So Reagan cited Manly P. Hall's unsourced story of the mysterious hype man and the Declaration of Independence multiple times as if it were confirmed fact. And as we know from Reagan's son, Ron, who is featured prominently in the Showtime docuseries, he's actually kind of becomes the star of it. Very often Reagan fell for his own sunny myth-making, so he likely thought it was fact too. After all, Ronald Reagan is nothing if not a collection of comforting bromides about American exceptionalism brought to life by some white nationalist Geppetto. Mitch Horowitz, in his research on Manly P. Hall, has pretty good evidence that not only was Reagan taken with Hall's little book on treacly American magical folklore, but that the two had indeed met and possibly kept in contact during his governorship of California and later the presidency. And I mean, anyone is entitled to have whatever friends they like, but I would suspect the average evangelical Republican might find St. Ronnie's relationship with that sort of Eastern mystical Svengali troubling. And far more troubling, what the docuseries shows is that the grifting Nancy, who was probably the most powerful person in the country, if not the world, lurking behind her grinning frontman, was far deeper in the mystical quicksand, little nod to some of our listeners there, than Ronald ever was. Nancy had long consulted various high-profile and high-cost astrologers for just about every conceivable decision.
Right.
When she fomented the firing of Reagan's chief of staff, Don Regan, who she openly despised, he wrote a tell-all book exposing her heroin-like dependency on celebrity soothsayers and palm readers,
right?
The sort of thing Reagan's voting base then and now would label as satanic witchcraft. Now, in the documentary, you will meet astrologer Joan Quigley, who I would generously describe as looking like Kristen Wiig playing a very confused, out-of-breath 1980s celebrity astrologer.
Which why have we not seen that yet?
You can't believe this person is real when you see her in the documentary. She's such a caricature. Nancy consulted Quigley on things small and large, like what time a state dinner for the prime minister so-and-so should start, to where and when stupendously consequential nuclear arms talks with the Soviets would take place, down to the most auspicious minute for Air Force One to take off and land. So a crazy woman that the First Lady met on the fucking Merv Griffin show was tasked with looking up what house Jupiter was in and the retrogressive status of the planet Mercury to tell the credulous dope of a president when and how to discuss the fate of every living thing on Earth with the Russians. And she did this and discussed the flight patterns and landings and takeoff times of the plane with the president in it on an unsecured phone in her little Beverly Hills astrology shop at the height of the Cold War.
Jesus
Love
Christ.
it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's a fucking miracle any of us survived this stupid, awful couple of shallow Reader's Digest small-time grifters.
I was really young when this story broke. But I mean, I remember it, but I was too young to contextualize it or fully understand it. But younger listeners should go because it is bananas.
Yeah.
That this actually took place. It's crazy.
Yeah. Normally things like the location and time and everything of nuclear arms talks, that's all handled by the State Department and the Soviet side, right? Very serious stuff.
Yeah.
You're saying that somehow Nancy Reagan is not as important as the State Department when it comes to this sort of thing? I just find that.
I'm just saying no. But remember, the non-Christian Manly P. Hall loving occultist Ronald Reagan ran against and beat the declared devoted Southern evangelical Christian Jimmy Carter.
I know.
Who I don't know about his health these days. He's kind of on the decline. But last I knew,
he's 112 years old. Leave him alone.
He builds houses and kills cancer. This motherfucker. Who anyway, until very recently, if he still doesn't do it to this day, teaches Sunday school every week in Plains, Georgia.
Yeah.
The utterly irreligious and vacuous Donald Trump smeared the declaredly Christian Barack Obama as exotic, not born in this country, un-American, and, well, black. Trump's evangelical Christian cultists, again, in the last election, ran to the polls to elect their new golden Moloch in order to prevent the lifelong, faithfully Catholic Christian Joe Biden as an un-American and un-Christian traitor. So, what does the story of Manly P. Hall, as told through the lens of Ron and Nancy Reagan, and ultimately Trump, tell us about the actual values of right-wing American Christianity? Is it that they cherish their stated values, that they wish to change all the laws in every state and the federal government to force the rest of us to live as they see fit? I think it demonstrates that they are willing to totally reorder and even tear down democracy to set up a Handmaid's Tale hellscape where we must live by their interpretations of the Bible, but not them so much, and their messianic leaders not at all. So that's Manly P. Hall and the grinning credulous occultist who loved him, you guys.
What do you think Melania consults or consulted during the was it the Slovenian blood cones that she put in the White House?
I saw that old Disney documentary where that woman would talk to the mirror and ask who was the fairest of all. I think actually Melania was pretty serious Catholic in her way.
Did Melania consult with anyone other than her divorce attorney? I feel like that's probably her guiding star.
Yeah.
How long do I have to stay with him until I can get all of the money that I want?
Yeah, and a lot of people had some sympathy for Melania, but then it kind of turned out she was just, A, she's just as awful as he is.
Yeah.
But B, she wielded a lot of power in the White House. So,
yeah.
They're both much, much stupider than the Reagans. But they're pretty similar. You know, they're TV personalities that didn't really know much of anything when they got into office and set about wrecking the place.
Wow.
So
yeah. Well, okay, there you go. Name your kids Manly, everybody. I think that's the real takeaway.
And bob their hair like a girl. All right. Well, that's enough of that. Let's move on. Well, Uncle Doug, are you there?
I am here.
Do you copy?
I'm here.
Are you reading?
Roger.
Are you coming in 5 by 5?
I don't know what that means. Are those his measurements?
You would have had to been in the Korean War with me.
Yes, I am a square.
So one thing I love, Uncle Doug, is statuary.
You're known where you are known as an aficionado.
Yeah, I love statuary. I love figurines of any kind. Hummel is a favorite.
Sure.
Yadro, of course.
Yadro, yeah, I was going to say.
Which is practically a Mormon sacrament.
Although your main thing is precious moments, I thought.
I do love
I thought you were really into precious moments.
I do love precious. You know, it's funny. I was working in Barcelona years ago, and there was a big Yadro shop, and my buddy was working with me. He's also from Utah, and we went in there, and he wanted to buy something for his mom because she's an old Mormon lady, and the guy said, "Oh, where are you guys from?" And Rico goes, "Salt Lake City." He's like, "Oh, that's the place I send most of my stuff." It's even in Spain. They're like, yeah, the Mormons love this shit.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't. Well, maybe we can explore this someday. But for our listeners who are Nevermos, Yadro and Wedgwood exist to be sold to Mormons.
Yeah. It's true. We're an elegant people out here in the Square State frontier.
It's nothing but class. Yeah, it's all we got. Everywhere you look, it's classy.
Well, Dan, you know a bit about statuary.
Well, yeah, I do, and we're going to talk about various kinds. But we'll start with the fact that a little more than a week ago, here in these United States, we had the Christian hatred circle jerk / human centipede cosplay reenactment known as CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference. This is the event where our nation's most brilliant conservative minds are forced to sit at home while the loonies who long since took over the American conservative asylum yell and scream about how the liberals hate America so much that they'd probably nuke it themselves, but they can't because they need all the babies for abortion and pedophilia purposes.
And they refuse to properly gender plastic potato toys. It's terrible.
Exactly. It's a problem. It's a real problem. Now, this year's CPAC had a lot to digest, from a stage in the unmistakable shape of a Nazi symbol to a national anthem rendition that was a crime against humanity.
Oh, that was so hard to hear. That was like having me sing the national anthem.
It was interesting. I've actually never heard a song sung in that many keys before.
You know that girl watched Gaga sing it at the inauguration and thought she was just going to blow her away. She's like, "Here, hold my Ephesians."
Oh my gosh. It was sad. It was as someone joked, it was sung in the key of Q.
Yeah.
Anyway, from all of those to Donald himself savaging members of his own party and getting big points dunking on trans girls. It was a real evil palooza.
Yeah.
Literally, we could do a whole show on almost any particular thing that happened there. But I want to focus on one element that was so insanely out of touch, so spot on stupid, that such an obvious own goal that if we wrote it in a parody sketch, it would sound too on the nose to even be funny. The 7-foot-tall golden statue of Donald fucking Trump. Now, this was supposedly a political convention, not a religious one. So if you live under a rock and haven't been paying attention to anything in the U.S. for the last, 20 to 30 years, you might be tempted to think I'm doing a political segment today. But extremely keen observers of our political system, people who look very carefully, may have noticed that the conservative side has given up on politics altogether and have instead decided that they are just the activist wing of the evangelical Christian church with some adorable pretend nods to Jewish extremists. And lest you think that I'm exaggerating, I took a look at the CPAC agenda. Each day, CPAC opened with a prayer. On Sunday, they had a Catholic Mass and a Protestant church service. They even celebrated Purim, which I think is cute. Senator James Lankford gave the most Jesus-y talk, which was supposed to be about religious freedom, but ended up being mainly about how proud he was to have gone to in-person church and sang there, thereby totally pwning the libtards in California.
What a patriot.
What a patriot. You want to hear his big applause line, by the way? It was, and
really.
I quote, "Quite frankly, the whole world seems to be gripey. Do you notice we're getting gripey lately? I think some people need a little Jesus in their life. Because, Christians never gripe."
No, if CPAC was anything, it was not gripes.
No, they have no gripes.
Yeah.
They're gripe-free.
We don't gripe. Now let me gripe about Mr. Potato Head and the Muppets for 2 hours straight.
Right. Can we talk about trans girls for an hour and a half now? The point is that CPAC and the American Republican Party in general are wholly owned subsidiaries of Praise the Lord and Pass the Ammunition Enterprises. This is why it is so utterly insane that this statue showed up. Now, before I go on, I should probably describe this thing for anyone lucky enough to have missed it. I will now ruin that for you. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth a Google.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
And I think it's for sale.
Oh, well, it is, and then there's another one that's made of
you'll get to it,
stainless steel and whatever, and the artist hopes will go in the Trump library. We'll get to that anyway. Or maybe we won't. Forget it. Who cares?
Who gives a shit?
Anyway, look, this is no regal tribute to Der Trumpenführer. No. This is a bizarre caricature image. Like an exaggeratedly large head that was apparently actually modeled on a bobblehead doll.
Of Trump?
Painted shiny gold atop a squat body, even for Trump. His torso is in a black suit and like a black suit jacket, white shirt, and red tie. But his bottom half is in American flag board shorts and red flip-flops.
I noticed
Flip-flops!
that. I saw that. I was so confused.
Oh, he carries a copy of the U.S. Constitution in his right hand, and in his left hand, and I'm not making this up, a magic fairy wand with a star.
What?
It's crazy to the point that if you showed it to me with no context, I would 100% assume it was trolling Donald.
That's what I thought when I first saw it. I'm like, why are they letting these guys in with that statue?
Well,
Where's
that's entirely
security?
possible. They're so bonkers that a performance artist like that, one of the yes men type people,
Right.
could just walk into their midst with something like that, and they'll be like, "Yeah."
Yeah. I honestly would never have guessed that it's meant to be a loving tribute, but
It looks like,
on the whole,
it kind
I
of
think
looks
we
like
can
the
all-
Bob's Big Boy, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. But on the whole, I think we can all agree, a classic piece of art.
It's Jeff Koons level of a celebration of kitsch.
Right, yeah, exactly. And we could get into the weeds about the artist and who the artist is. Apparently, there's a second guy who's claiming that he's the real artist.
Uh-oh.
And that he's just branding this Tommy Zegan guy. It's bizarre. It's crazy. I don't know what to think. But that's not the point. The point is, what happens when you wheel a large golden statue of the leader of a scary cult into CPAC? Well, first you get throngs of admiring fans cheering it on and taking selfies with it. And seconds after that, you get everyone in the world making the instant connection with the golden calf that the Israelites made and worshipped in the book of Exodus.
Yeah.
Yeah. A very, very obvious thing. Now, feel free to consult my in-depth 4-part series on that fucked up fiction in episodes 106 through 109. But the short version is that the Israelites witnessed dozens of major miracles by God in rapid succession. But then when Moses left them for a few days, they lost all their object permanence, decided Moses and his God were gone forever, and made themselves a golden cow to worship. Now that, interestingly, didn't make Moses happy. Or God, for that matter, or me reading it. Nobody was happy about that. And what was Moses doing while they were playing idolatry improv? He was being given the 50 or 60 commandments. I mean, yes, the so-called 10 commandments were part of that, but God never says a number, and he says, "Here are my commandments," and then launches into 11 fucking chapters of obscure and bizarre laws, including how to sell your daughter into slavery and what to do if you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen down under its load. Important stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was only much later that everybody was like, well, maybe we should just focus on this first 10, huh? Literally, that's true.
Yeah.
Nobody realizes that. It is literally chapters long, and they ignore everything but that first chapter. Well, we've talked quite a bit about Moses' big Decalogue on this show, but today we're just going to focus on commandment number 2, or maybe number 1, depends on who you ask. We've discussed all that.
Yeah.
Here's the quote from Exodus chapter 20, verse 4, as it appears in the good old King James. Quote, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image." Or at least that's all you'll see carved into a monument on the lawn of the Arkansas State House.
Right.
But there's actually more to the verse. Here's the whole thing. "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth below, beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." Now, I'm kind of shocked every fucking time I reread that. Somehow, my Mormon upbringing has me so wired to cherry pick and see only what I'm supposed to see that I always forget that the Ten Commandments the Ten Commandments orders God's followers not to make any likeness of anything.
Yeah. Anything.
Of anything.
A fish, a bird, a person, a tree, anything.
Yeah. Because Christians are into likenesses.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. You won't find a more likeness-loving group than in history than Christians.
Yeah, stroll
Jesus.
around any Catholic cathedral.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
On earth. And you'll see just likeness, not likeness. Paintings of Mary and sculptures and frescoes. Just do an engraving. And by the way, graven in this case seems to mean carved, as in engraved. But there's quite a bit of disagreement about that word. Lots of translations leave it out entirely. The New International Version has just, "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or the earth beneath or the waters below." So they got rid of the graven part altogether. So there you are. No making images. It's right there in black and white, 1/10 of the commandments so important to Christians that they claim over and over again that they are the basis for all law and order in all of Western civilization.
Right.
And yet, they ignore it completely.
Can I ask a question? Would
Please
not
do.
a stone carving of the Ten Commandments constitute a graven image?
We'll get to it.
Okay.
I mean, let's get to it now because you kind of scooped me on it. I was going to get to that, but I kind of think, I kind of think like it's an image of the, especially if you do it sort of in the style of the Ten Commandments,
a tablet or a
the
book.
stone tablets.
Yeah.
You've made an image. You've engraved it. How is that not? Yeah.
It says right here.
Right. What's number 2 up there? What is that part?
Yeah.
I just want to get one of those guys out in front, one of the state lawmakers so proud of having, broken the U.S. Constitution by putting it out there and just be like, hey, what does that second one mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish they would be consistent and love the Second Amendment, Second Commandment as much as they love the Second Amendment.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One they ignore completely, one they think is scripture, and it's the wrong ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, they claim, of course, that they are not ignoring this commandment. They say it's not about any old images, it's about idols. And yes, the next verse does say, "You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments." Now, leaving aside the pure evil of the concept of punishing your great-great-grandchild for some shit you pulled back when you were drunk that one time.
Right.
and the ridiculous notion of an omnipotent being jealous in any way, it does seem to point out that this little bit of scripture is about idolatry. But read what it says. It 100% does not say, don't make images for use as idols. What it says is, don't make images at all. That is idolatry.
Yeah.
So here we have this giant Trump statue. Is it idolatry? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
He is their leader, and they unequivocally worship him, forsaking any semblance of fealty to what Jesus ever said about loving thy neighbor or sheltering strangers in favor of Muslim bans and build the wall. Forget render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Let's do tax cuts for the wealthy.
Yeah.
Away with the blessed are the peacemakers. Let's do insurrection at the Capitol.
Yeah.
Jesus has been gone from this country for years, and Trump inexplicably is the new chosen God. The fact that the statue showed up and is gold
Exactly.
is just icing on the fucking bullshit cake. Just an extra final bit of fuck you to the God of the Israelites.
Well, and not for nothing, but it's the iconography of the Ten Commandments, the film.
Yeah.
Right, in that when he comes down from Mount Sinai and they've built that golden calf, is burned into the cultural memory of all Christians, because they've all seen that movie 50 times. So I don't know if they were being like, we're gonna make a golden statue to own the libs, or if they were capable of that level of self-awareness. I don't know, but it was bananas.
Well, we talked about this in the patrons only segment today, right? So hurry up, become a patron so you can listen to the longer discussion. But he is, he is messianic.
Yeah,
They were willing to destroy democracy and kill. They were going to kill the guy's own fucking running mate.
Yeah.
Right?
They'll do literally anything. There's nothing. There's no depth to which they won't sink, and no action to which they don't aspire if he says to do it.
Yeah. Where were the Obama voters that were willing to just burn the Capitol down? Where are the Biden voters that are willing to burn the Capitol? They
don't exist.
It doesn't exist
because these guys aren't like gods to us.
No, they're temps.
It's actually super interesting to me. I still think that, even though I do think that Exodus is entirely beyond the realm of belief. But seeing American Christianity turn into whatever it is now in as short a period as it has, it makes me think that maybe the ridiculous swings and beliefs of the Israelites might not be as unbelievable as I thought, as I was thinking that they were.
So true. We've had many a good laugh at the Israelites. It's like, guys, just wait 24 hours before you build an idol.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, and to support the point, only 10 years ago, that same CPAC conference was in full support of their big candidate, Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Right.
This year, he was literally banned from the event and booed when his name came up.
Good God.
And he's still a Republican. Like, there's literally nothing in him has changed except he grew a little bit of spine. The thought that someone as vanilla and pathologically boring as Mittens P. Romney being that kind of a lightning rod says something profound about the state of Christianity in the United States.
Yeah, the trend lines for this movement are not good.
No, it's terrifying.
Well, and it's especially terrifying because, as will obviously and certainly be the defense Trump will put forward in all these lawsuits about his inciting the insurrection, he didn't actually say, go take the Capitol, go storm the Capitol. He intimated, he hinted, right? But God help us when he actually gives a command.
Right.
Or the next guy who these people line up behind says explicitly, I want you to kill this person or these people.
Yeah, his whole life has been about plausible deniability, right? So it was the, who will rid me of this infernal priest moment for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Totally.
But these people, they've fallen so far down this rabbit hole into this idol worship that, the one idol's as good as the next one once you get that far down the rabbit hole. So I think, Trump is going to go away one way or another, and these people are primed and pumped for, they need an idol to take that place, and that guy may not be as calm and kind as Trump.
Or maybe they just wander around like aimlessly for a while and can't fight, because it's not like people are going to coalesce around fucking Ted Cruz or whatever, but we'll see. Anyway, the Trump statue, I'm going to get back to this whole thing that we were talking about before. The Trump statue is idolatry and an image, and therefore 100% in breach of the Second Commandment. Great. But you don't have to be an avuncular heretic to figure that out. Even conservatives like Bill Kristol and Republican Rep. Adam Kinzinger instantly saw and tweeted about that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
So let's look at some other things that Christians seem to like and ask ourselves some Second Commandment questions. Let's get back to this graven image thing. The God of the Bible really seems to have something against carving. So
he hates
you pointed out, Uncle Doug.
art.
Yeah, pretty much. We're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
On the whole thing with I'm sorry. Now I have to go through and figure out how much I have to cut out because you scooped me there.
I'm
Doug.
sorry about that.
No, it's good. It's
my
good.
My brain is exceptionally powerful and insightful, so I can't help it.
It is. It's so smart. Yeah. All right, so let's just jump on to the question of what is actually an idol. Well, let's imagine, if we can please, a wicked little ancient Canaanite village where all the idolaters live. It's in the center of town. There's a statue of, let's say, Baal. People go there to pray at that statue, asking for a good harvest or whatever. Then they go home and they touch their little Baal wood carving that they have, for good luck or whatever. They adorn their house with the symbol for Baal, whatever that would be. They make jewelry with Baal on it and wear it around their neck or dangle it from their ears to use as a reminder for their worship. They touch those items when they pray. They kneel before them. They gaze on them and make them think about their beloved Lord Baal. I think you know where I'm going with this. An idol is, quote, an image or representation of a god used as an object of worship. So how the fuck is a crucifix not an idol?
I know.
Or even just a cross.
Yeah.
Or a picture of Jesus. Or a fucking candle with a saint on it. Or any of hundreds of things that Christians litter their houses with every day. It is literally exactly what the Second Commandment explicitly forbids. It ticks all the boxes. Just because it's a graven image of supposedly the right God doesn't mean it's not 100% exactly what they're not allowed to do. So,
wow. You're 100% right. And the commandment doesn't say, thou shalt only have graven images of me and my shit.
Right.
It says nothing.
It says specifically no graven images.
Yeah.
No images.
No
at
images.
all.
So all of photography and cinema. I mean, the Taliban back in, what was that, 2000? Blew up those two
Bamyan
Buddhas in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
To the great outrage of the world, because they were truly one of the treasures of the ancient world.
Right.
They were following this commandment as it should be followed if you want to call yourself a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's literally and for the longest time, if you've ever gone to see an old Muslim building, you know that there are no images there. There's just cool geometry and some calligraphy that looks graphic.
Yeah,
because
but no images. Yeah,
yep.
They're not allowed to have images.
Yep.
They were taking it seriously, at least for a while. Now they're a little more wishy-washy on it, but draw a picture of Muhammad and see how that goes over.
Right.
But man, the book is clear. If you care at all about the 10 Commandments, and I don't know why you would, because it's followed by a whole bunch of commandments that nobody cares at all about.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally, like the same people who will say, oh, well, the Mosaic law is fulfilled in Jesus and we don't have to think about it anymore. The same people who say that will still want a 10 Commandments on their courthouse lawn or whatever. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to care at all about the 10 Commandments when you don't care about the literally 10 chapters of laws that follow them.
Well, look, this is all well and good, but get back to me when Christians start coveting. You know what I mean? Like
that's true. They're really good on that one.
They haven't
got
crossed,
most of them.
They haven't
down.
crossed that line yet.
Yeah. So I guess the real answer here is that Trump isn't the God of the American right, actually, and it certainly ain't Jesus or Yahweh. Here in these United States of America, everybody is their own God, and therefore whatever occurs to someone to believe or do, that's the holy decree of their God. It is a country where literally everything is idolatry, so why the fuck not golden fucking Trump?
Why not?
The end.
The end. Well, I will be placing a bid in the name of the How to Heretic on
Please do.
on the Golden Bob's Big Boy from CPAC, and we'll see.
What a nightmare it would be if we actually won it. Had to ship
Are you
it here.
kidding me? I would turn it into a car and drive it everywhere I went.
We could make it into a toilet, a golden toilet. That's his thing.
Oh, I love it.
That's his
I
jam.
love it.
So, all right. Well, go forth and grave no more.
Yes. Well, boys,
Howdy.
we do the show. Look, I say this every week. People appreciate the show, much to our astonishment.
Yeah.
And some of them choose to go ahead and give us a little bit of their coin, and boy, do we appreciate it. Some of them also give us 5 stars. You know what? I'm going to actually jump the line here. I'm going to start with the reviews. I'm going to say thanks to everybody who gives us 5 stars.
Let's mix
thanks
it
to
up.
everyone who reviews us on iTunes or wherever you can review us. Like, for instance, Seattle Sky Eyes, who gave us a review, who said the title is Hilarious and Informative Show. I can't disagree. And they say that great humorous perspectives on the various religious topics. They bring the concepts and stories down to reality with a delicious topping of snark. Enjoying my way through the back catalog. So thank you so much for that review.
Yeah.
And
Very
if
sweet.
you haven't written us a nice review, that's free. You can just do that.
It's the weekend. You have time to do it right now. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's not the weekend for you. It's Monday or Wednesday. Shut up,
For
Mark.
you, it's the middle of the week, but
Yeah.
you still have time to do it. It's COVID, so go out there and write us a review. But we also have some folks to thank who appreciated us monetarily speaking. And I'll start with Scrap Teeth. Thank you so much. And Uncle Mark.
Yeah.
I think somebody they improved their thinking to the point where they get to go to heaven.
Oh, they do. They get a happy forever after, and wait till they hear about it. So Zach, our dear patron Zach, upgraded to heaven, and we're very happy to provide an eternal resting place for him. And it is as follows. Dear Zach, when life departs your body after you were thrown from the top of the Intimidator 305 roller coaster at King's Dominion Amusement Park in Doswell, Virginia, because your restraint bar was disabled by the stranger sitting next to you, who it turns out is actually a Croatian hitman named Spider Drogash, hired by the Betty Crocker Company as revenge for your endless online slander of their famous pineapple upside-down cake, you will awaken slowly to the pumping sounds of something wonderful and increasingly familiar. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Love was changing the mind of pretenders while chasing the clouds away. Our hearts were ringing in the key that our souls were singing as we danced in the night. You see, Zach, the darkness parts, and you find yourself a little dazed and bedazzled, standing as you are in what seems like a fantastical garden of light and swirling stars, while gorgeous young people float and fly past you, with impossible speed and grace. It's so disorienting, you feel like you're going to lose your balance. But as you step back to recover your uprightness, it's as if the ground is rolling out from under you. So you flail wildly, even more disoriented than before. You're just sure you're going to go ass over tea kettle and break your celestial keister. But out of nowhere, what surely must be your guardian angel swoops in to steady you before you fall. How fortuitous. And she could indeed be an angel. Well, more of a cherub, really. She's a pretty girl of no more than 12, laughing giddily at your antics. As she grips your hand, you look down to see that your hand is not a mangled mass of shattered bone, spurting blood, and meat mangle, as it was when you landed at the base of the roller coaster just seconds ago. Nor is it the intact but mature hand of the man that boarded the roller coaster, not knowing that day would be his last. It is the hand of a child, very much like hers. And wait, do you know this girl? Wait, what the fuck? Is that Jenny Masterson from Mrs. Edmonds' class? The girl you had a nearly debilitating crush on in 6th grade? As your consciousness finally settles into your forever mind and body, you see the swirling field of stars and gliding angels you thought you were floating in is something even better. Why, it's the most magical place of all. It's the United Skates of America roller rink in Tampa, Florida, where after relentless begging, your mom arranged for you and a dozen of your friends to celebrate your 12th birthday, Zach. In that moment, lo those many years ago, when Jenny Masterson took your hand and the earth, wind, and fire was bumping, and you were in your coolest jeans and T-shirt, you thought, this must be what heaven is like. And just like that, the fates heard you and made it so. Well, some Zach said it. It may not have been you, but a Zach for sure. So you see, Zach, the postmortem celestial destination targeting system is effective, but not super accurate. Kind of like how God uses hurricanes to punish gay pride parades. So whether it was your special birthday wish or someone else's, the good news is you're forever 12. The soda and the nachos are literally endless. And if you love one of the most upbeat, joyful songs of the disco age, Earth, Wind, and Fire's September, you're in luck, because you will hear it on repeat for eternity. And if not, well, the nachos are literally endless, Zach. So let it be written, so let it be done. And your forever clockwise, disco-themed 12th birthday, your custom heaven from which there is no respite and no escape.
Wonderful. Well, don't go counterclockwise.
No.
You don't want to go against the grain at the disco, at the roller disco.
No, that'll embarrass Jenny Masterson, and who wants that?
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Well, what a lovely eternity you have awaiting you, and thanks to all of our beautiful patrons and everyone who's written us reviews. Go ye therefore and do likewise.
Yes, please,
everyone, and let's continue our show.
Let's move on.
Hey, Uncle Mark.
Yes, Jesus. A little warning, please.
Can I regale you with a tale of my youth?
I wish you would.
As a young man, my pop, who was a kind of a cowboy at heart, used to every now and then would take us to a mountain man rendezvous. Often up in a more rural part of Utah, where guys wearing very much leather would regale you with stories of the Old West that were almost certainly fictionalized, and tell you all about the heroes of the mountain men.
I had another friend, a lady person, whose dad would take her to the Mountain Man rendezvous.
Yeah. And
she was very happy to have won, as a teenager, the skittle throwing. So, skillet throwing competition.
Skillet is different from skittle.
Yes.
That's true.
Fucking words. My brain today. I'm having vaccine brain. But yes, she won the skillet throwing competition, which is what the ladies were allowed to do.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. There was always some sort of thing where they'd like shoot candy out of a cannon and be like, everybody go get it, or whatever.
Jesus.
Anyway, I believe, Uncle Doug, you would like to regale us with a mountain man hero story.
I would indeed, and it has a very relevant tie-in to, not only our show but kind of our lived experience. So one of the few things that anyone would consider an area of expertise on this podcast are all things Mormon. So it might come as a surprise that somehow I have managed to avoid the subject for 13 consecutive episodes.
Have you?
13, if you disregard Super Del Shanzi, which on balance, I hope you do.
Please disregard Super Del Shanzi.
Yeah. But at long last, I have decided to return to the corporate real estate development and wealth management firm masquerading as a religion, which happens to dominate our pretty great state.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Perhaps it's our new feckless and useless governor that is in a desperate effort to reclaim the title of worst governor from those of Texas and Florida. Or perhaps it's our legislature, which is disproportionately Mormon, which is in session and is trying to do everything in its power to ruin any chance we may have to exit this catastrophic pandemic and or recover from this economic disaster.
Well,
Go
hold
team.
on. They're also trying to ban trans children from sports, Doug.
That is right.
Give them some
They're
credit.
doing the Lord's work is what we're getting
They're
at.
covering all the bases.
Yeah, the Utah legislature is, there's few in the country that prove the axiom more true than no one's life, liberty, or property is safe when the legislature is in session.
Right.
So,
Right.
Or perhaps I want to return to a Mormon subject because the new Netflix documentary, Murder Among the Mormons, about the forgery and bombing spree of one Mark Hoffman that we talked about back in episode 136, is trending.
Yeah.
But like it says in the book of Proverbs, quote, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. So today I want to take another high dive into the shallow end of the baptismal font and talk about another chapter of Mormon history. This is a chapter that is not generally well known, and when we get to the end, we'll talk about that. I find that to be somewhat galling, how much of our history in the state was not taught to us, and there's reasons why, as we'll discuss.
Mean the most of it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And had one or two things gone a little differently in the story, the West and indeed American history would look very different today. So today I want to talk about Jim Bridger and the Mormons. Most people at least recognize the name Jim Bridger, and many have a passing knowledge that he was a legendary mountain man and feature in the history of the West. What many may not know is that he played a very pivotal role in Mormon history, both for the benefit of the saints and eventually to their detriment. So
I love that you just referred to them as the saints.
Yes, well, that's a fair point. In a lot of the histories, in the olden days, they were called the Mormons or the Saints.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a fair point.
I think that they would still accept saints, right?
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's how they were. That's how
Yeah.
we grew up referring to our damn selves. That's
Right.
what's crazy.
Yes.
So let's start the story from the perspective of Jim Bridger, who he was and what he did and how he first encountered the Mormons, helped them, then soured on them, and may have both accidentally saved them and also prevented them from escaping their desert kingdom here in Utah. It's a weird story. There are a few names in the settling of the West that reach the level of legend like Jim Bridger. On that list would certainly be Kit Carson, Jedediah Smith, and George Armstrong Custer. And it should come as no surprise that Bridger knew all of them, and nearly all of them considered Bridger to be the greatest among them. Bridger was born in March of 1804 in Richmond, Virginia, only 21 months and 600 miles away from another birth of another notable character, Joseph Smith.
Interesting.
Bridger's family relocated to St. Louis while Bridger was still a boy, which at the time was on the edge of civilization and the gateway to the great American frontier that Lewis and Clark had explored the same year as Bridger's birth. So this was very uncharted territory if you just looked west.
I feel like St. Louis is still on the edge of civilization.
That's fair.
It's just still on the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bridger was orphaned at 13, and although he would go on to speak French, Spanish, as well as obviously English and several Native American dialects, he remained illiterate his entire life.
Really?
At 8, yeah, it's that one of those crazy things where you can be that like virtuoso and just no one ever sat you down and taught you how to read or write.
Wow.
At 18, he joined the William Henry Ashley fur trading expedition along the Missouri River, and then would spend the rest of his 77 years trading, trapping, and exploring the West. It was on that fur trading expedition one Hugh Glass was attacked by a mother bear, badly mauled, and eventually left for dead, which was depicted in the Leonardo DiCaprio film, The Revenant. Mm-hmm. In that film, Jim Bridger is depicted as a young man who is tasked with staying with Glass until he succumbed to his wounds and then burying him. Then they left him for dead.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the young kid in that movie is supposed to be Jim Bridger.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but that account is almost certainly apocryphal, The only like in the account that was written, and these guys weren't like stopping to write screenplays and journals. They were busy fighting off Native Americans and animals. There was a guy named Bridgist that was with Glass. It may not have been Bridger at all. He may have had nothing to do with the whole affair. So, Bridger was among the first Americans to see the natural wonders of Yellowstone. Let me rephrase that. First European Americans to see the natural wonders of Yellowstone.
Right.
And may have been the first white man to see the Great Salt Lake. Although that distinction may belong to a French trapper, Etienne Provost, but we will never know. Do you guys remember the story when we were kids about the first mountain man to reach the Great Salt Lake? He stuck his finger in it, realized it was salty, and thought it was a branch of the Pacific?
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah, that was a story. That was Bridger.
Okay.
So his knowledge of the local geography, weather, flora, fauna, and Native American tribes made him the most sought-after guide for both military and civilian overland expeditions. So this would be his profession for the most of the rest of his life. And although he discovered several routes and passes, some of which still bear his name, that shortened the overland trek and made the journey easier, he was not without his muck-ups. Most famous among them, advising the Donner Party in 1846 that their proposed shortcut was probably fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. His attitude toward the Native American tribes was somewhat complicated. Enlightened for the time, surely, but certainly complicated from our perspective. He was mostly highly regarded by the local tribes, learning their languages and trading honestly with them. He married a woman from the Flathead Indian tribe in 1835, but because this was the West, she died several years later. So he married the daughter of a Shoshone chief, but she died 3 years later in childbirth. So in 1850, he married the daughter of another Shoshone chief. Of the 7 children that he had from these 3 marriages, only one would outlive him.
Oh, my God.
I know. God.
What a time to be alive.
Exactly. So,
or not be alive, depending.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly.
What a time to die.
However, he also worked often as a guide for the military, whose prime directive at that time was to steal native land and displace the inhabitants. He even led the army during the infamous Powder River expedition against the Sioux and Cheyenne, which, contextually seems like a minor massacre, but at the time was a big deal. He detested rough treatment of the natives, put a small pin in that for a second, but probably naively believed that there was enough land and resources for everyone. So to further that purpose, in 1843, he built a trading post, coincidentally named Fort Bridger, near modern-day Green River, Wyoming, to outfit and support expeditions coming through. Unbeknownst to Bridger, the very next year, Joseph Smith and his brother would meet their fate in Carthage, Illinois, which we talked about in episode 96, eventually leaving Brigham Young in charge of the Mormons and then their exodus from the United States. This brings us to June of 1847, when a group of Mormon pioneers led by Young himself reached Fort Bridger. Young and Bridger met to discuss the Great Salt Lake Valley, which it was known at the time, of which Bridger was the foremost authority. We talked about Young and the Mormons' arrival in the valley back in episode 97. Although the Mormons had decided on this destination before they began their journey, they knew where they were going.
Yeah.
First-hand information on the valley was scarce, to say the least. So having an audience with the only true expert was invaluable. Bridger thought it was ill-advised to bring such a large host into what was, truly, a bleak and desolate salt desert, but that die had been cast. So Bridger gave them needed information about the mountain passes, the sources of water, and other bits of information. The Mormons tarried another day, but did not buy any provisions from Bridger, balking at the price. So.
Thanks for the information and go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
Well, they did have just hand carts full of provisions.
Exactly.
They were well provided for.
The Mormons made it to the valley by July 24th, and the influx of Mormons began in earnest over the next few years. As Great Salt Lake City, again how it was known at the time, grew out of the desert, Bridger made many visits to the city, but there are no accounts of him and Young ever meeting again. However, they were very much aware of each other. Over time, Bridger soured on the Mormons, mostly because of their treatment of the native tribes. The moment the Mormons reached the Salt Lake Valley, they sent out mini expeditions to secure any source of water they could find for hundreds of miles.
Yeah, because this place that we all live in is a desert hellscape, and it would be ridiculous to stop here.
Yeah, exactly. So once they secured a source of water, the Mormons felt none of Bridger's notions about sharing in the plenty, which inevitably led to conflicts with the native tribes. In these skirmishes, the better armed and more ruthless Mormons always came out on top, driving the tribes further and further away from their traditional sources of water and into far less desirable lands, only to be invaded again. Bridger knew all these tribes. Like I said, he spoke many of their languages. He married into several of them, and he was well known to all of them. So they looked to him for some form of relief from the Mormons, some kind of ambassador to the Mormons. And
Who do I look to for relief from the Mormons?
Right.
How can I find that?
Great question. So Bridger couldn't do anything about the Mormons. He had no power with them. So he began selling arms to the tribes to level the playing field a bit.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Yeah, but this was illegal under federal law at the time. Yes, assholes, there have been gun restrictions in American history. So. In 1853, Young got wise to Bridger's arms sales, and being not only the territorial governor, Young was also the federal Indian agent, because why not? So Young issued a warrant for Bridger's arrest and dispatched a posse of, depending on the account, 48 or 150 militiamen to arrest Bridger. But it was a big force. Bridger was forewarned and managed to gather up all his arms and ammunition and beat a hasty retreat. The posse, led by one of Young's personal guard, William Adams Wild Bill Hickman, awesome name.
Not Hickok.
Not Hickok. Yeah, I think if your name was...
Sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say Hickman was the other Porter Rockwell, right? He was
exactly
the other one of Brigham Young's assassins and enforcers.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So Hickman found Fort Bridger deserted and empty of any arms, but with lots of provisions, including a large supply of whiskey and rum, which the posse promptly destroyed. I think...
Rude.
Very. I think we've all come to appreciate the value of a good stock of liquor during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Imagine how much more valuable that stock would be when the nearest liquor store was hundreds of hostile miles away.
Right.
So it was a huge fuck you to Bridger, right? Like the warrant didn't call for that. The posse occupied Fort Bridger, but then they even built a trading post called Fort Supply 12 miles to the southwest so that Mormon pioneers would not be forced to ever trade with Bridger again. So Bridger, now with a warrant out for his arrest, his livelihood under threat, and his earthly wealth up in smoke, vowed revenge, which he would get. Kind of. So when the Utah War began in 1857, Bridger was all too happy to act as a guide for the U.S. Army. We talked about the Utah War as context for the Mountain Meadows Massacre back in episode 51, but just a little recap. Word of Mormon polygamy and depravity back in the eastern United States was causing quite the stir. In fact, the winning presidential platform for James Buchanan in 1857 stated that it was, quote, the duty of Congress to prohibit in the territories those twin relics of barbarism, polygamy, and slavery.
Huh.
So once in the White House, Buchanan felt that he had to make good on that promise, so he dispatched 2,500 federal troops to march to Salt Lake City, establish a military presence in the territory, install a new territorial governor, and keep an eye on the Mormons. So the Utah expedition might be worthy of its own segment someday because it was a piss-poor effort front to back.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. And it's a sign of how disorganized and badly managed was the antebellum U.S. Army. The expedition didn't set out until July of 1857 to make the overland journey. This was 4 full months after another ill-fated expedition had set out along that same trail, the Baker-Fancher Party. We'll talk about that in a minute. This was much too late in the season, but there was substantial pressure, like political pressure, to deal with the Mormon problem post-haste before the inevitable Civil War broke out. So they were sent on this expedition far, far too late because of political pressure. And aside from starting late, the expedition was poorly provisioned, badly led, and undisciplined. Their leader, Colonel Edmund B. Alexander, would prove to be timid and indecisive. Somewhere along the way, they contacted and hired Bridger to try and get them to Salt Lake before the winter set in. So the slow pace of the expedition gave Young plenty of time to prepare. He called up the Nauvoo Legion, which was his militia force made up of all able-bodied men between 15 and 60, that numbered some 6,000.
Jesus.
Yeah. Although not a battle-hardened military force, the Legion knew the land, they were supported by the population, and they were fighting for their homes. So Young also declared martial law and shut down all travel through the territory. The Baker-Fancher Party had just made it through already, so they were before that ban happened. And during that time, Brigham Young proclaimed the following, quote, "Twice in Missouri and once in Illinois, they drove us from our homes at the point of a bayonet, and that too by aid of the state authority. They murdered my dear friends Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith and many others. Mobs robbed and murdered us while the entire nation looked on without lifting one hand to help us. And now the U.S. Army is coming to take our homes. A body of troops, well armed and equipped," they weren't, "evidently ordered to Utah by the President of the United States. They're coming without warning. Forgive me, Father, if I'm wrong, but this time we will not turn the other cheek. This is our home, our Zion. This time we fight back." So there you go. Unless anyone
he wasn't totally wrong.
No,
Like,
that everything
they
he
were
said in
under
there,
attack.
They were under attack. They had been driven out of the United States. Their own culpability in many of those events is certainly absent from that quote.
Right.
But he's not wrong. Lest anyone think that the Mormons were not capable of violence, it was at that very moment, early September of 1857, that a Mormon militia in southern Utah was busy carrying out the Mountain Meadows Massacre, killing some 120 pioneers from Arkansas. So for more on that fun, go back to episode 51.
Not to mention all of the Native Americans that they had just slaughtered.
Yep, across the entire Intermountain West. 100%.
Yeah, I mean the Timpanogos, the Timpanogos tribe. I think they killed a minimum 100 of them in one incident.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So although the Army expedition had no idea about the Mountain Meadows Massacre, they were starting to fear conflict with the Mormons. As they approached the territory, the Nauvoo Legion began a campaign of harassment and scorched earth to slow them down. This campaign was very effective. Farms were abandoned, crops burned, and flocks scattered to prevent any of it from falling into the Army's hands. And not only that, but the Legion would also constantly harass the expedition by firing their weapons in the air just out of rifle range day and night. In the only direct skirmish of the war, a small raiding party led by one Orson Porter Rockwell, who we should definitely do a segment on someday.
Yeah. We should.
Attacked the Army camp early in the morning in an attempt to scatter their horses and pack animals. Just a side note, Bridger and Rockwell knew each other. Even the Old West wasn't big enough to contain such two larger-than-life figures. They first met at the original meeting with Brigham Young in 1847, but had encountered each other many times in Salt Lake and on the trail out in the bush. By all accounts, they actually liked each other. So this raid on the Army was a total fail. The bell they were using to scatter the flocks got caught in a thicket, and all the animals just ran back to the Army. So, well done. Shots were fired, but only up in the air to scare the animals, and no one was hurt or killed. This did serve to let the Army know, however, that the Mormons were at the very least not afraid to pick a fight. So It's now October, winter is coming, and the poorly provisioned expedition had to make a very fateful decision. They needed to get to Salt Lake Valley as quick as they could, where they could construct a fort and survive the winter. But the most direct route took them through several mountain canyons, like you mentioned, Uncle Dan, where the Legion was clearly lying in wait. Or they could turn north, head up and around those passes, and enter Salt Lake from the north rather than the east. But this route was literally twice as long. So they were confronted with, let's get to Salt Lake, but through the shortest path is probably going to get us shot. Or we go up and around, it'll take twice as long, and winter will certainly have set in by the time we get there.
And we have to go through Davis County, which is terrible.
The Northern I-15 is a goddamn nightmare.
It's all big box stores. They would have hated it.
Yeah. Colonel Alexander dawdled for several crucial days trying to figure out what to do. He finally asked Bridger what he thought they should do. So Bridger kind of had to weigh those two twin dangers, and knowing the danger that both of them posed and that neither route was optimal anymore, he advised going north to avoid conflict. Alexander agreed, and that's what they did. So this one decision to go north instead of east is one of those sliding doors moments where all of history turns. And yes, that's the film Sliding Doors starring Gwyneth Paltrow. I bet you didn't think I could shoehorn her into this story. So,
well, wait until we start talking about Brigham Young's jade egg.
Oh, God.
The expedition did indeed head north, but within days they were caught in a massive winter storm and forced them to turn back and to try and seek refuge at Fort Bridger, which, of course, when they got there, had been burned to the ground as part of the Legion's Scorched Earth campaign. So the expedition was forced to cobble together what shelter they could and wait out the winter, freezing and under-provisioned, which also meant they had no chance of getting to the Salt Lake Valley until 1858. Had the army marched east, they almost certainly would have gotten into a hot war with the Mormons. The Legion was planning a massive ambush in the heavily fortified Echo Canyon, and since they occupied the high ground, like you said, Dan, and outnumbered the beleaguered expedition nearly 3-1, it would have, in all probability, been a bloodbath and a total defeat for the U.S. Army. There's no telling what the U.S. government would have done in retaliation, but it would have been violent and overwhelming.
Yeah, it would have been something for sure.
Yep, and the whole history of the West would have been radically different. Had the expedition even made it through the northern route and entered the valley from the north, things could have easily escalated in that case as well. The Mormons had made plans to abandon the city of Salt Lake and burn it to the ground if they could not stave off the army. Put a little pin in that for a second.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they had actively started planning for that very eventuality, right? They were not going to let the city fall into federal hands. But by the time of the spring thaw, a whole host of circumstances had changed. Young, knowing that if he managed to win the battle with the army, he would be bringing down the wrath of the entire United States upon them, and now fully aware of the events at the Mountain Meadows Massacre, he had good reason to believe that he may already have done so. So during the winter, Young made several overtures to the Buchanan administration offering to vacate his seat as territorial governor, allow a military presence in the valley, and even get provisions to the wretched expedition at Fort Bridger. This all worked, and by the time the expedition was ready to march again, the Utah War was over. So I mentioned a little earlier that it's crazy. And, it was Bridger's decision to go north. It really did fall to him. And then the fact that they were stopped by that winter storm and prevented from getting into the valley until the next year. Had they entered the valley, either route, things could have gone so differently in the West, and certainly for the Mormons.
They would have inevitably gone differently.
Yes.
There's no way it could have. It couldn't have.
Yeah, they might have won the little skirmish with that small number, but then 20,000 more would come. Yeah,
precisely. Probably under the command of General Lee, actually.
Yeah, competent.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that the Mormons had made plans to abandon and torch the city. Well, another little wrinkle of the story is that they had planned on heading north toward the Pacific Northwest. South and southwest weren't really options because of the populations in California. So Young began setting up forts and exploring routes to the north of Salt Lake. The first of these forts was a small fort near Tendoy, Idaho, about 350 miles away. The fort was called Fort Limhi, of course named after a character in the Book of Mormon.
Right.
And as the winter of 1857 progressed, the Fort Limhi had about 200 inhabitants that had been busy planting crops and raising cattle for the possible arrival of the rest of the Mormons. During this tense winter, while the U.S. Army expedition was hunkered down at Fort Bridger, and Young was weighing his options, an alliance of Nez Perce, Bannock, and Shoshone Native Americans attacked Fort Limhi, scattered the livestock, and even killed a few Mormons.
Oh, wow.
The remainder beat a hasty retreat back to Salt Lake. Here's the thing. Bridger knew these tribes, and at the very least condoned, if not encouraged, the raid on Fort Limhi, most likely with the express purpose of shutting down any possible escape for the Mormons. So although this little skirmish was somewhat minor, it had the intended effect of closing any northern escape route to the Mormon, church. It was certainly in part the loss of this option that helped cause Brigham Young to rethink his strategy and reach out to the Buchanan administration. So with the
and apparently it's why Oregon is liberal right now instead of a bunch of crazy Mormons.
Yeah, that's exactly. And they were preparing to abandon Salt Lake and head up to Oregon. So there you go. With the Utah War over and at least a measure of his revenge taken, Bridger returned to trapping, trading, and guiding until his death, ironically in Missouri, in 1881 at the age of 77, which was the same age that Brigham Young died at 4 years earlier. So here's the thing I talked about at the beginning. I think this story is incredibly fascinating. Jim Bridger had a disproportionate role in Utah history and American history, and we never were taught this in school.
No, I knew about Jim Bridger, but he was a very side character.
He's kind of like I'm guessing that if you had asked young Dan who Jim Bridger was and whether or not he was real, I don't think I would have known. I would have known the name, But would I have known if he was any more or less real than Pecos Bill?
Or
I
Paul
don't know.
Bunyan, or
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seemed like this sort of legendary figure that
And-
you don't know what he did.
And quite a chess player, like that, bottling up the Mormons here and making, Brigham Young, we were taught was just this masterful statesman and prophet and founder of the whole fucking West. But it's great that this kind of trapper was able to bottle them up and make them stay here.
Yeah, and it
Keep them
successfully.
at
Yeah, pretty cool. All right,
Very cool.
there you go.
Alrighty then. Well, with that, let's not head north.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. If you're out there hunting and trapping your way into old age, send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you find yourself in violation of the second commandment, leave us a voicemail about it at 903-88-HOW-TO, 903-884-6986. You can also tell me about it on Twitter at howtoheretic.
And as always, thanks to our incredible, generous patrons.
And thanks to our graven image, Cody Layton, for editing the show.
And thanks to all of you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
Bye.